Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for be up, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back. That sucked. That's Iowa Joe. I'm Mike, and the Packers were so bad today, I could not be bothered to wear a shirt for this episode because I ate it. I was so mad. Not really, but
Nobody else gets to see it, but I'm stuck looking at this like, okay, we got Adonis over here and we got the blob over on this side.
I'm not sure which one of us he's talking about at this point.
Yeah, like I'm the Adonis out of this friggin' group.
Oh, what a wet fart of an ending to that game. I mean, the only positive spin I can put on it is like they had to be in a position to blow it. And how much of that was the frustrating thing was, for the most part, they were doing what you needed to do to secure a win in this kind of game. Sure, you would have liked to see them make a few more plays on offense, but they were up 2 scores late in it, not making the back-breaking mistakes. Yes, you had many things that I'm sure we'll go over in our segments, and then the bottom just fell out. The bottom fell out twice, and almost a third time if you count Jacobs and his fumbleitis. But this just felt like one of those, like, the universe decided, Green Bay, you're not gonna win today. And Green Bay didn't do nearly enough to say we are going to win.
And we kind of talked about that in the preview, where it feels like one of those games that they should be able to go out there and just dominate things, but because of what Cleveland brings on defense, that's going to be the game changer. And it really was the game changer. Let's just go ahead and jump into our stuff. That way we don't over talk points. So,
fresh cheese.
I'm going to go with one of the few low-hanging fruits that I know of, and that's, I think we've finally got a long-term kick returner. Savion Williams has looked really good taking kicks. I'm hoping they start putting him more on punt returns also, just because I think we're going to need the Matthew Golden with Reed out and Watson not quite back. I think we're going to need Golden out there to be more concentrating on being a receiver than being a punt returner. Not saying he can't do all of it because he's done it so far, but I think we're going to hit that wall later in the season because you being a draft person, me being a draft person, those people out there that know draft stuff know that when a guy comes out of the draft in his rookie year, they always hit that wall because college has, 4 fewer games than professional the NFL does.
Basically, even if you make it to the national championship game in the expanded playoff, you're still not playing 17 games in a season. So yeah, it's like, yeah, there's a definitive difference. And I agree. And I think I know Savion doesn't fit the athletic type you usually want in a punt returner because you want a guy who can make 1 or 2 quick moves and then go. But I like how he's looked really comfortable fielding kickoffs. We've seen him move to catch kickoffs. So I really do like that part of it. And then I know we're going to have a discussion on the special teams unit, but I do feel like it almost seems like Golden has been told, do not run up for a punt where you might get schwacked, kind of thing, even if you call fair catch, because he's definitely reading them better. He didn't catch one inside the 5-yard line today. Like, you saw improvement there. He was a little more definitive on his inside the 10 reads, when to let the ball go and all that kind of stuff. But he had a couple where he could have run up like 10 more yards and he had time to like run up, get under the ball and settle himself. And he kind of like just starts pointing when you can tell the ball's like not even, like, if you could extend the camera angle up another 20 feet, you still wouldn't see the ball in the frame kind of thing. And you can see him already like doing the double point to be like, it's there, it's coming there, get away from it kind of thing. And it's moments like those where I'm kind of like, I know he can get to that ball, and I don't like that. Like I said, this is pulling a lot of straws, but it feels like he's been told, do not get in a position where you could get lit the fuck up on a punt return kind of thing.
That's all
And
possible, but I think, and I know I interrupted you, but just to throw something in there, it's possible that happened, and it's also possible that he has a little bit better vision when certain things happen, because one of the punts that he returned, it bounced and then he took it. So I don't know if that helped him with his vision to see, okay, it hit. What are my options now? Grab it and go. And he had a decent, I mean, it wasn't like a 95-yard return for a touchdown, but it wasn't a negative play for him. Got positive yards out of it. So I don't know if that's added on to what you're talking about, or if that's just how he's used to doing things.
agree. And you just want, like, I've brought it up before how, like, when Micah Hyde got drafted, and I was like, oh, good, someone who will, like, return punts and stuff. And another buddy of mine who went to Iowa, he's like, yeah, but he fair catches too many of them. I'm like, yeah, but he catches them. Like, that's half the battle to me, is like, and then Jeff and I joked about how, like, well, shit, then he goes and returns like 4 of them for touchdowns in his first like 2 seasons as the returner. But like, to me, in the NFL, punters have gotten so good that you've got to field that unless you're dead certain it's bouncing into the end zone for a touchback. You've got to field it, because you're either going to get pinned inside the 2, or it's going to do that thing where it's bouncing at the 15 and then the ball rolls itself down to the 3-yard line, which is kind of what happened today on that one where Green Bay got pinned up against the goal line. And so, you know, whether it's what I'm saying, where the team has told him, like, if you've got to run more than 10 yards, just let it go kind of thing, or if it's like or if it's a combination of what I'm saying and you're saying, like you said, where maybe letting it hit gives Golden a little bit better vision, comfort, whatever, to return. But yeah, like, I agree with you that Savion has been the lone bright spot on kick. Even on what should have been the game-winning drive, he he catches that kickoff on the fly and gets to the 30, and then ends up grinding out another 8 yards on the return to put the ball at basically the 40-yard line at that point. So, I mean, it's just an added dimension that we haven't had on that side of the ball, and the new kickoff rules kind of provide.
Well, this is the stats that he had today. He took 3 kicks for 78 yards. He averaged 26, and the long was 35, which is the one that you were talking about, that he grinded out some more of those yards. And honestly, it got to the point on that grind out that it looked like he was going to sneak out of that pile.
Yeah.
So that's why I said Macy, and I said this on our post game with Brian, that when he got drafted, it made me question why they signed McCole Hardman. Because when they signed McCole, it was to be, all the speculations were to be he was going to be primary kick and punt returner. Then they went in the 3rd round and drafted Savion Williams. It's like, then why did you give? I know it was a cheap contract, but why did you even waste the money to give McCole when you've got the guy that can do the same stuff, but on a rookie contract? And you're going to have him around for a little bit longer. So that didn't make. Now we're seeing why I kind of mentioned that, is because he's able to do some of this stuff. And I think he could honestly do punt return with the way he grinded that last kickoff. I think he could have an easier time doing punt return also, because that means he can take a hit and avoid, or, he can take a hit and bounce off of it and go and do, get more yardage out of it. Now, this is saying all this stuff without actually knowing what he can do on punt return, but it's a gut feeling. It's just what I've put in my head from seeing what he's done with kick return. I know it's a little bit different to field a punt than it is a kick, because the ball's coming at you a different way, but, I really think that we could put him there. And even though Golden can do what he can do, and who was the other one that they were throwing on punts for? They were kind of switching him and Golden out. Was it
Nixon took some last week against Washington after
okay?
Reed got hurt. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
was Reed, and then Reed got hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, instead of doing the switch outs, instead of doing all this stuff, let Golden treat Golden like your number one. Let him get into the offense. Savion can do what he does on offense, but then he can concentrate a little bit more on both return aspects. And like I said, that's one of the low hanging fruits of fresh cheese on this one because Savion's looking good on that.
Yep. Honestly, all the things that they're using him in, I think LaFleur went back to that well a little too much on offense because you had, I feel like you. It's always hard to say like how many times it's too many to like show the like alternate and stuff, which in this case is Savion getting the ball on the jet sweeps or as the Wildcat quarterback and stuff. And it's one of those where it's like, okay, you've like given the cheese enough times. It's like, when do you just run the dive play behind it kind of thing and stuff. But I agree, like I do really like what we've seen out of Savion. And as much as like he doesn't fit the stereotypical build of what a punt returner looks like, I do think that the stuff we've seen him do, whether on the jet sweeps or like as the Wildcat quarterback, speaks to that he does have that short area quickness that you'd usually want in a punt returner. And yeah, like you said, why not? Like, just I know I don't believe he's gotten many punt return chances in preseason, but at this point, given the circumstances, why not? Like,
I don't think he
why
had
not?
any because remember he was out for a good majority of the
Yeah,
preseason.
and I think like I think they might have listed him, but he was like fifth or sixth on the list. It was like
I think
Reed,
he was getting
Golden.
some snaps during like mini camps and that because they
Yeah,
were just basically throwing everybody out there and
yeah,
say, "You're going to field a punt. You're going to field a punt."
and then yeah, the only other I guess okay, I guess there's two other like fresh ones that I'll take. Rashawn taking advantage of his opportunities, getting two more sacks today. I know on I know the one play he just wasn't touched by anybody, but you got to take advantage of your opportunities, and it was really good to see not just to see him convert on those opportunities, but the one he didn't get touched. There was a burst there that he had getting off the short corner into the backfield and throwing Flacco down. So good to see production there. And then the other fresh one that I've got is it was really good to see third and Dobbs, and it was really good to see Golden have a big play moment in this game. And I know those were far and few betweens for reasons that we'll get into later in this show, but it was nice to see those two provide some normalcy to the, and I'll throw Wicks in there too. Like the three of them really did provide some counterbalance to what was a kind of haphazardous offensive game due to issues that we'll go over shortly.
Oh, I've got one other one that's kind of a small one, so this is more of like a fresh cheese curd than an actual block of cheese. But John Fitzpatrick getting his first career touchdown. It was a good play. He got into a good spot. For a guy that we kind of like wrote off for a little bit, he actually had a couple of chances. 2 targets, 12 yards, average 6, long of 9 with the one touch, which was the touchdown. So, it's good to see him be able to get, some playing time and get some stats out there. He was the lone touchdown for the Packers for today. So, I got to give him a plus on that one.
And it's honestly like, it's a bummer because if they had won this game, I would have spent like 15 minutes talking about how great of a play it was from both him and Love because, like, the short of it is, it's good awareness by Fitzpatrick to sit in his spot because if he continues out to the flat, he's just taking his defender underneath of, I believe it was Golden, and I can't remember who the outside receiver was, but he's just clogging up the throwing lane, and then you get situations like the pick that Rodgers threw against the Bears in the 4th and Cobb game early in that game. Really good of him to like kind of just sit on the inside shoulder of the linebacker. And then it was good of Love to like pump fake him open because he like pumps to the cross behind him and then he throws it inside shoulder, and it kind of like Fitzpatrick just like turtling with the ball to make sure that no one could do anything to it and stuff. And like I said, if they had won this game, it's one of those plays where it's like, yes, like well
Well,
done.
to Fitzpatrick's credit, Love threw it like he was Brett Favre throwing a rocket
Yeah.
ball, because that ball had some heat coming off of it.
So yeah, I just appreciate that Fitzpatrick kind of like it almost looked like he got punched in the gut and he kind of just like collapsed into it and stuff. But yeah, I agree with you.
I'm not really seeing. I mean,
We
you
can just
mentioned Golden, you mentioned Dobbs, you mentioned Wicks. You could throw Kraft in there because he had a okay game for what
had what
what
should
it
have been the
was.
setup for the game, what should have been the game-winning field goal. Yep, let's just move along. Like this isn't celebrating a win. There's a lot of stuff to hand out for this game.
What's this stale shit?
I don't know how much of stuff we can say is stale because
I've
I
got
think most.
I've got one that I'm, people are going to say I'm an alarmist for bringing this up and again, but Jacobs, like his ball security has been an
Oh,
eyesore for me, and I'm only leaving it barely in stale because it didn't burn the team yet, but he had moment, and I tweeted this early in the game where I was like, he catches that third down conversion, and it's like, dude,
he
you're
held it with
you're
one hand.
you're not on the goal line. You're not trying to score a touchdown here. Like it's a first down, so tuck that thing away. You're carrying it in the wrong hand. You can't see if there's a second defender coming at you kind of thing and stuff. And then the sequentially next play, he's running and he does that thing where like it's really weird to talk about because he holds it high and tight in front of him, but then when he starts to open up the throttle to run, he pumps his arm so far in back of him that it's like a stiff breeze could blow it out of his hand when it's like that, and they almost got him. And then obviously he got saved by the fact that there is no way to conclusively determine who recovers a fumble under the pile kind of thing. And I know people were like staunchly like, you can see his two yellow gloves on the football and stuff like that, but again, it's like, what part of the game you're in, put two hands on the football. Like there's no
I don't know how
goal
you
line.
can see two hands on that because he only had one out. The other one was underneath him.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's the whole like, again, it's like the third down conversion earlier in the game where it's like, you're not on the goal line. Hell, you fumbled going into the goal line last year and like made the Colts game more interesting than it should have been. But like that one that almost blew the game on the final drive before the blocked field goal, it's like, tuck the damn ball with two hands. You're not stretching for the end zone on this play. So like, and I know some people are like, oh, but he's trying to steady himself. Like, no, like this isn't the point to pull out some Barry Sanders ass move to like try and break four tackles and get a touchdown. It's like, sure, yes, you should always play for a closer field goal, but Cleveland has been trying to rip the ball all game. Stop taking dumb chances with it. So that's my lead off stale this game.
I'm going to put this one in stale, but it probably should go into moldy, and that's the secondary play this game. I don't know if it was the game plan to do it, if they just weren't used to it, because even though the pass rush was kind of hitting home, Flacco was still making some pretty decent throws, but it just seemed like there were too many open receivers. And there were times that it almost bit him in the ass, because the one that I think of right off the top of my head, and you might think of more, but the one that mainly comes off the top of my head is the weird flea flicker that they tried to run where, obviously flea flicker, you hand to the tailback runs, pitches it back, and then you're supposed to throw it deep. That's the part of a flea flicker that but for some reason Flacco threw it as a screen pass. So that was weird. But when you saw the replay and you saw, the wide screen of everything and you saw everything going on the field, he had Isaiah Bond running free in the middle with nobody around him. McKinney was deep, but by the time McKinney would have caught him, he could have almost been in the end zone or close to the end zone. And there were a couple other times that stuff happened that, and I mentioned this on the post game, that had Flacco been in his prime state, this game would have been completely different because they were leaving too many guys open. And I compared it because it was making me sick. It looked a lot like an Iowa Hawkeye game more than a Green Bay Packer game because there was a lot of soft zone and like that.
Yeah, it was really weird because there were multiple instances where they like the first zone defender just like didn't want to carry routes kind of thing. And another one of those was, I think it was the plays, it was in that sequence right before halftime where they sack Flacco on first down or second down, and then he steps up and throws that deep dig route. And when you see the replay, Hobbs kind of just like, he doesn't bump. I think it was Judy on that play. He doesn't bump him, and then he kind of just like throws his hand up to be like, he's coming, go get him, kind of thing. And there's no route threatening up short. And also, like, it's a 2-minute drill, so like you don't care if they catch something underneath, kind of thing. And it was just really odd situational mismanagement. And yeah, like you said, like they just weren't totally locked in like they had been the first couple weeks. And I want to chop it up to being like the first road game. It's an uncommon opponent, being an AFC team, blah, all that kind of stuff. And like, they just done so many things so well the first two games that it really made the stuff they did wrong today an eyesore. And I agree with you. It's kind of like, yeah, I don't even know what barometer to put on it. Like I said, we're still only in week 3, so I don't, there's no five alarm, fire or anything like that. But it's all data that we're taking down to like compare in another month or two, where it's like, okay, which one was the trend and which one was the blip? Like which way do we go? My other stale, and it's hard to say because I don't know if we'll face another Garrett level defender because we have the other guy in Parsons. My other stale was, I feel like LaFleur almost
TJ Watt.
Oh, I guess Watt, yeah. I feel like LaFleur almost over prepared for Garrett, and I don't want to get on
This
him
was
too
going to
much.
be here. Before you get into it, we're just going to throw it into our next one
It's
because
some moldy cheese.
this was going to be one of mine.
Okay. And so, like I said, I'm pulling it into the stale because the break I'm giving him is like, you spend the week not knowing who your starting O line is going to be because Banks and Tom are injured and stuff. And that's another conversation we'll get into. But then you're like, oh, okay, cool. I've got my starting O line. And then Tom is out after one play. And so in LaFleur's position, you're kind of like, shit. Like, you're caught left-handed at the wrong time, and you're like, shit, what do I do now? I think, but I don't mind you giving him extra help and stuff like that, but I felt the chips were weird because you had the one where Musgrave starts blocking. It wasn't even a chip, but it's like Musgrave is blocking Garrett, and then Walker isn't like ready for him kind of thing and stuff. And then you had the play where you like definitely have 3 guys trying to block Garrett, but then Morgan gets his ass kicked off like right off the snap kind of thing and stuff. And so, like I said, I'm barely holding it up into the stale because the offensive line situation, which was a thing of their own doing and we'll discuss later, but 2, you don't have, like you said, it's Garrett and Watt basically are the only 2 guys like this on your schedule, and they're both uncommon opponents. And so it's like LaFleur kind of was like, oh, let's go over prepared instead of possibly underprepared. But it's the rest of your line isn't good enough to do that kind of stuff anymore, and LaFleur needs to recognize that. And yeah, I'm gonna just cut that one short because, like I said, I had it as stale. You go into your part. What made it moldy for you?
Well, actually, you're wrong. It's not just a Garrett and a Watt We play the Bengals, so we'll have to deal with Hendrickson. Play the Eagles, so we have to deal with their whole defensive front.
I'm
Play the
talking about.
Giants.
I'll give Hendrickson that regard, but like I don't think the Giants and the Eagles I look more at as like it's a collective unit thing as opposed to
Yeah,
like
but the
it's
Giants
one guy.
have Thibodeau and Burns, so you're going to be looking at double there. Then you got Lions with Hutchinson again. I'm trying to. We got the Broncos. I can't think of anybody on theirs that's really a.
Bonito is pretty good, I guess, but yeah, he's not at that tier. He's not in that elite tier.
And then of course you got the Ravens. So, but there are teams that we're probably going to run into the same thing, and hopefully LaFleur learned his lesson from today, and can game plan things. But it's a moldy for me because the many reasons. Let's just put it that way. One, offensive line, whatever they were doing, they should have never put Zach Tom out there.
I've got that moldy as its own separate thing. I totally agree with you there.
Right. How many times were we talking about this on the preview that he kept saying that I'm not comfortable yet. I don't know if I'll be able to go. I don't know if I struggled running. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And next thing we know, he's starting. And then he's out after the first play. He should have never been put out there. They should have prepared whoever they were going to put at right tackle, whether it was Morgan, whether it was Belton, whether it was Kennard. They called up Banks, whatever they were going to do, then that's what they should have done. But the offensive line as a whole was just junk today. Elton Jenkins was getting his ass handed to him. The 77 million man, is it Aaron Banks?
Yeah, Aaron Banks.
For some reason, it didn't. I was thinking of one of the old 90s Packers, and it wasn't like clicking.
You know what
there.
it is? They're both left guard Aarons from Notre Dame. So it's Aaron Taylor in the 90s and Aaron Banks now.
So he was, and I know he was still struggling, but you can't go out and say, I'm playing no matter what, and come out and have a game like that. That's not a good look. Rasheed Walker was holding up the best he could. I mean, he was probably one of the lone bright spots on. Yeah. Sean Ryan was so-so. They really didn't call much. You didn't really hear his name called much, which, they always say that that's a good thing when it comes to the offensive line. But I blame the players because Zach Tom should have been man enough. And I'm not calling him not a man, but he should have known his own body and said, Coach, I can't go. LaFleur, being the head coach, if he didn't think he was ready, should have been like, Zach, you're sitting. And where the hell was the medical staff? This medical staff is known to be conservative when it comes to injuries. How is it that he can go out and play when every day leading up to this, he was saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go. I'm still bothered by it. And now we have to worry maybe he made it worse.
Right. And that's what I was saying all week. Don't turn a 2 to 4 week injury into a 2 to 4 month injury. That's the worst thing you can do at this point. And those guys TJ Watt lines up over the right tackle. I know they moved Garrett around more than he has in a lot of other games, but he really does prefer to rush off the blind side. So, like, even more so. And I thought Belton was okay today when he got in after all the injuries took place. Wasn't great or anything, but he wasn't, like you said, it's the whole, like, no one was great on the O-line, but I thought Belton and Walker were two of the least problematic things out there. And I tweeted it early in the game where it's like, you had the one where, I can't remember if it was a sack or just a pressure, but you had the one play where Jenkins, like, doesn't look the right way off the snap, and the nose tackle just comes right up the right A gap on Love. And you can tell, like, okay, Ryan and the right tackle clearly are going to the right. And so it's like, did you miss the slide or did you just forget who you're supposed to do?
I thought that happened a lot throughout the game because there was one that I remember that Walker and Banks went off to the left, and they had two free runners coming through, and Jenkins went off to the right, and it's like, are you not watching your gap lineup here?
Yeah, and who knows, like bad call, bad missed assignment, whatever. But I said part of this is that this line has not played together enough over the first few weeks of the season, and you saw the warts of that come true. And these kind of things always play up on the road. You can't. Cleveland's not good, but they're still loud in that stadium. And you saw a couple. Love's basically having student council meetings in the backfield where like he's like, dude, like you can see him trying to be like calm, cool, collected, but it's like, you guys know what you're doing. And he had a couple plays where like he's kind of getting on the whole old line because he's like, you guys have to get in position so I can run, hurry up, or I can catch. Because I think that's why he wasn't sure he caught the Browns with 12 guys on the field in that one play where LaFleur had to challenge it, because he was like yelling at one of the linemen to like hurry up and get set so I can do
No,
the
he was
thing.
yelling at the ref because the ref was standing in the way.
No, that was a different one.
The one that you're talking about where they thought that they were getting the 12 men was the ref was up there and was like, didn't know if he was stopping it or not.
No. So there was that one in the first quarter, and I think that ended the first quarter. And then there was the one in, I forget, the second or the third, the one that LaFleur had to challenge it, where he like, and Moose Johnston was like, you can see him telling his linemen like, get in your stance kind of thing and stuff. But there were multiple, and we'll get in, like, I know we always say we don't want to get on the ref. This ref crew was shit today. So like you just combine like, but the more than anything, the Packers did not do enough to not let the refs being terrible be part of the outcome. So we're gonna go through all of those and stuff. So yeah, the O-line overall, it just was not good. Whether you look at it from the Zach Tom situation, I don't think Banks' injury was as directly, it's not like Tom where it's like he re-aggravated what he had, because he had an ankle and then he left with
he
the
went
groin.
out for a bit because Ed Morgan played left guard for a few snaps, at least a few snaps.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it's not as direct of like a, oh yeah, that's the same thing he came in with problem kind of thing. Like, I know that it's all lower body, so hypothetically, if he's at all favoring, the groin could have gone because of the ankle and all that kind of. But it's not like with Tom where it's like you said, all week it was, I'm not 100%, and he didn't even give the like. On Wednesday, it wasn't even the like, I'm not feeling great, but I'm expecting to give it a go. It was, I don't feel good. We'll see how I feel, we'll see tomorrow kind of thing, or we'll see. And you just never feel good about those kind of situations where, and I wouldn't
And it
have
would be
minded.
different if he was like a quarterback more than a offensive lineman, because a quarterback theoretically can play with a strained groin. He's not going to be as crisp, but he's not having to drive.
Love did it last year. Like it wasn't great, but it was. And like the whole thing that I think of is like Bulaga in, I think it was 2012, the one where he like fucked up his hip on the play where like he's playing with like two other injuries, and it was the one where like if he just fell down he would have been fine, but because he was like, no, I need to stay on my feet and do my job, that he like, I think they said he like almost tore the bone off his, like he almost tore the
Was that the
tendon off
dislocation? Didn't he dislocate it?
something like that. It was bad, and that was the one where they were like, oh yeah, if he just fell down he would have been okay kind of thing. And it was like, that's the most Packers injury, that he got hurt worse because he like tried to be a man and not fall down on a play and stuff. So it really, like, that was the kind of thing that I was like, I like, don't want Tom to play this game, and not in a like we're good enough without, because this O-line showed they're not. But it's the whole don't lose the war and the battle kind of thing. Like, I say it all the time, you've got to approach the season with a 30,000 foot view. It's a marathon, not a sprint. All the adages you want to use for it. And the the play calling that I did put in my moldy is I don't like when LaFleur goes both overly wild in his protection scheme and in terms of like shelving his play calling, where it's like you still got to play to your identity. And I felt like in the first half he like went so far into like protective mode that it was like, no, like we're throwing everything short, we're throwing screens, like we threw more like of those like running back, like those little like running back lead block screens that I've seen in a long time. I can't tell you the last time we threw two wide receiver screens in the same drive, like true like outside receiver steps in kind of thing and stuff. And I think that's kind of why Rashid got called for the. Also, I thought his illegal man downfield, this is getting into the ref thing, I thought that was a load of crap because he's clearly in the backfield and that rule is like, it doesn't count when you throw it behind the line of scrimmage kind of thing. But I don't like when LaFleur just totally junks his usual stuff along with going overprotective. I think that I have less problem if you're going to pay more attention to a singular player like a Garrett or a Watt. If you're still going to do it, if you're going to do that to run your usual stuff. I don't like it when you do both. That's a moldy
And he
for
was
me.
overdoing it because there were
Yeah.
even times that they were showing on replay that he was putting 3 people on Myles Garrett.
Right. And like I said, I don't mind being like committing to that, but then you can't also be like, okay, and we're not running anything like past the sticks or anything like that. And you saw Love. I think that's kind of what got Love on the final play of the third quarter, where it's like, I don't know what you're looking at, Jordan, but you've got to throw the ball away or something at that point. You can't take a sack.
That's another moldy that we'll get into in a minute.
But also, I do think that it's like that's one of those moments where he got like paralysis by analysis because like the game plan is so like overprotective child safety mode that it's like you can see his brain seizing up where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to take the check down quick kind of thing, but oh, Romeo might be open and stuff, and I'm just tossing the softball up for you to lead into this play because that one they had momentum on that drive, and then that play just the air went out of the balloon on offense a little bit there after that.
So I guess we're just going to combine all these together because we keep running into them. But play calling sucked. For some reason, like you said, he went conservative. But it was really weird because he went conservative in the fourth quarter. He like opened it up a little bit in the third quarter when they finally got their touchdown.
Right.
And then he went conservative in the fourth quarter, like, well, we don't want to trust anything. Well, then I think by that time, the defense was so gassed that they couldn't make any stops. And then Jordan was making some dumb decisions. He took a couple of sacks that could have been easy throwaways. One in particular, he was way outside the pocket that he should have been able to toss it away and not got anything called against him. But he ended up taking the sack. And I do want to say, Andy Herman, I know you know you do know things, but you cannot justify that. There's no justification there. Throw it away, you lose down. He took the sack and lost, what was it, like 15 yards on that play?
And you take away, like, you're at midfield and you could have gone for 4th and 1 in that scenario. Like, that was the big, there's no running clock. Like, it's not like it's an end of game scenario where it's like, oh, they're out of timeouts and you can run 40 seconds off the clock. Good, like, that's a smart play in that scenario. That one is just like, I was pleased they actually snapped the ball because I do hate the, like, you only go for like drawing them off sides kind of thing. But then it's like no one looked ready for the play. And then, like I said, Jordan, you saw his brain fuse in that as he's like outside the tackle box and you're like, just throw it. Like, just get rid of it.
Do you think it's possible, and I'm not saying it is, but do you think it's possible that Jenkins snapped that ball when he wasn't supposed to? Nobody was really ready because, like you said, nobody seemed really ready for the play to be called. And then all of a sudden we get a snap and Jordan's on the run.
It's possible, but only don't think so because you don't see him like yelling at Jenkins after the play. He kind of looked more disappointed in himself kind of thing. I do think Jordan isn't that guy. I don't know if he'll become that guy later in his career, but he really does, the whole like he doesn't have a pulse. He's very even keeled kind of thing. But like I said, you saw the times where he had like the student council meeting in the backfield, or in the time when he has to call timeout because the play is slow, or like guys aren't getting lined up quick enough. You can see where he's like, come on, like we're better than this. That play, it was just so weird because he takes the sack, they're going into the quarter ending commercial timeout, and he kind of just like he looked more upset at him. He kind of was like, it was sort of like the, well, that was stupid. Like it sort of looked more like that reaction than the, oh, like Elton, what the fuck, like like. So it was just a bad
Yeah,
play. Yeah, I,
it was, and he had
and I
some
don't blame
moments.
you. I don't blame you for thinking that, because it just was such a weird sequence scenario
I,
kind of thing.
it was just a thought that came to my mind right then, because it used to be with Rogers that if the clock started going to a certain time,
We're
he
not
told his
snapping.
centers to just
Yeah.
go ahead and snap it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if maybe that could have been one of those things that him and Jenkins had talked about it and said, we're going to run a play no matter what. So once it hits a certain time, just snap the ball. And it just didn't work out for him. And that's why he could have been upset at himself with it. But overall, that was just, and then, like you said, the burn timeouts. That's an old Rogers thing. I thought we were getting away from and having to waste timeouts early over stupid shit.
And they had been better at the first two games of the season, and I want it to just be it's a first road game, and it did feel like it, but at the same time, you're right, it doesn't sit well where you're kind of just like, you're grinding your teeth at it and stuff. The penalties, they were, like I said, this ref crew wasn't good, but the pre-snap penalties the offense was getting called for, like Jordan Morgan, you cannot
Morgan,
be you cannot be a guy who we don't know what your position is and then be pissing away like 20 yards worth of pre-snap penalties on your own. He killed multiple third and shorts, one of them leading to the field goal that we did make because it's 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, and then false starts into a 3rd and 9 kind of thing. You had the 3rd and 1 where Love gets sacked on the next play, and then the worst one is the Tucker Craft dive play where there's absolutely no reason for him to be going when he does. Like those are the kind of mistakes that are just inexcusable.
Evan Williams with his penalties were kind of junk.
Parsons took, he took responsibility for his, and you know, it's so hard because when you're that kind of player, you're gonna push the boundaries of like it is the whole like with him lining up off sides. His are the whole like I'm gonna go 10 over the speed limit until I get caught. Unfortunately, he got caught at the worst moment in the
Clay
game.
used to do it all the time too. Clay was
Yeah.
really good at reading the snap count, and it would nail him sometimes. But before we get any further, here's what the final breakdown was according to ESPN. And it's a really weird breakdown when it comes to the penalties. So the Browns had 8 penalties for 90 yards. The Packers had 14 penalties for 75 yards. So while they had more penalties called against them, they gave up less yardage than the Browns did for the penalties.
Well, most of the Packers ones, like 10 of them were pre-snap, and then the other 4 were like all on the Browns goal line kind of thing. And like I said, we're getting there. Don't worry, we're getting there.
But yeah, this ref crew was nuts. I mean, it got to the point where even Moose was saying there was nothing there. I don't like that one. There was nothing there. And it wasn't just against the Packers. It was on both sides that they were just calling these random ass penalties that it's like, and I still didn't look it up to see who said it. I talked about it in the post game that somebody tweeted out the refs getting paid by the flag, by flags.
I think it was Wayne and Rock. I believe it was the two of them that I believe they were one of them, and then it was someone else that kind of said a similar thing. Someone like with a following who said the same thing and stuff. But yeah, like there was the The ones that were the god awful worst though were like the sequence before the Browns got their first field goal, where um the call on Bullard is like so
Late.
borderline. It's late. First off, it's days late. And then to me, the reason I didn't, and this is not Homer, the reason I don't believe it deserved a call is Tillman is not at all trying to look for the ball. And Bullard's a little out of position, but it's within the 5 yard bump zone. And Tillman's not trying to fight Bullard off. He's like, he feels contact and he's immediately throwing his hands up, like, oh, I'm done. And I absolutely hate when referees reward that kind of behavior because
And that wasn't the only one. There was one other
and
one
then,
that was,
like,
they were going the other way.
3 plays later, it's the Nixon one where
There was nothing going to be called, and then all of a sudden the receiver looked back at the ref and was pointing at him, and then the flag immediately came out.
right, and then what's it called? And then thank God they called the chop block on the Browns, which it was a chop block, but also like there better be a quick makeup call and stuff like that. And you know, the worst one that the Packers got in their favor was the holding call on Wyatt Teller before halftime, because and Moose was right on that one too. Like, that's not a hold.
Well, that's what I mean. It wasn't just against the Packers. They were going back and forth. But what was the one that was in the end zone and the Browns were like right near the goal line and it was like a pass interference or holding or defensive holding or whatever. But doesn't that have the same thing? That was within 5 yards of each other, and does that not matter in the end zone?
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to, I think you're talking about Williams' last penalty, right? After the interception.
I don't remember who it was, but the receiver was like coming across the end zone, and it might even have been Nixon that they kind of nailed on a grab, and he like slightly grabbed the shoulder, but they were like right on like the 2 yard line.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I think he was deep enough in the end zone that he was like past 5 yards kind of thing and stuff. But to me, that one, it's like, and Moose called it out. He's like, that's not even marginal. That's nothing. Like you like Nixon has a right. You know, it's like what I was saying about Hobbs getting called, or why Nixon didn't get called on the one Noah Brown play last week. Is just like he has a right to that spot on the field because he is standing there first. And Judy, and again, it's the whole like, you don't fight off the contact, you run into him, and then like the throw is off, and you don't make a play on the ball. Kind of, that's the part where like, okay, like the rules for pass interference, but like whatever it was, like 8 years ago when they were like, oh, pass interference is reviewable. I didn't have a problem with it at its core because I was like, there are so many terrible pass interference calls because of the penalty on the defense. It absolutely should be a reviewable thing. The problem is that teams were stupid about it and were challenging the dumbest ones to challenge. And then there
those
was like,
are ones that I think need to be like an automatic review.
Right.
Where if it's called pass interference, then New York needs to do one of their split second reviews and say, no, that wasn't pass interference,
Right.
and buzz down to the ref. And, like, what is it that what do they call it? It's the
assist or whatever they call it.
Yeah. It's like mainline, whatever, assistance. But, they're watching this multiple screens in New York. That's something they could easily do. I know you don't want to move to like an automatic officiating system. You want to leave a lot of it up to the human element. But in cases like this, it makes you not want to leave it to them because they were just calling fouls to call fouls.
Even the 12-man on the field that LaFleur had to challenge to get right. That's one of those where it's like, they're talking about, like, they're doing the replay, and Moose and Burkhardt are like talking it through, and you can hear the two of them stop because they cut from the broadcast view of the sack to the spider cam, and you can clearly see Devin Bush eases off the throttle running off the field, and you hear both of them like tail off. They're like, in their head they're like, that's the 12th guy, and he is very clearly still on the field, kind of thing. And it's one of those where it's like, you can't miss that. Like it's one of those where you just can't miss that.
The other thing about it is they were taking so much time in their quote unquote conferences when they would call or throw a flag too. And it's like, if you can't make the decision when you throw the flag, don't throw the flag.
Right. And sometimes in those discussions, I always hope that like the crew is like, Fred, are you sure about this? Like, do you really have to throw this flag, Fred? And
My
Fred,
idea of it is they're usually talking the guy into, yeah, that's what the penalty is. That's yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you can sometimes tell though, it's like Fred, really Fred, and stuff. But I do agree with you. Like half the time, it is the whole like I said, the one that blew my mind was when Wicks caught that one like where he runs the orbit motion and he's like 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, catches the throw, and it's in the realm where it's almost a lateral, and then they're like, oh, illegal man downfield, and I'm like, I thought it doesn't matter if the pass is caught within a yard of the line of scrimmage, and it doesn't even matter because Wicks is in the backfield, kind of thing. And that one, I was like, well, fuck it, it doesn't matter because Jacobs caught a screen the very next play and it got a first down, kind of thing and stuff. But
And wasn't there one in the end zone where it should have been a Packers TD, but it came off the board because of some stupid ass penalty? I don't know. My mind is all kinds of mush
I
because
don't think
it
they
put
did.
me into
Yeah,
funk after watching that bullshit.
yeah, not today. I'm trying to Rolodex which one you're talking about. I don't think they had a throw into the end zone today that mattered. I did think the one they missed though was especially with what they were calling PI late in the game. I thought that Ward should have been called for PI on the third down right before they kicked the field goal to go up 3-0 because he's panicking, he's late, and he doesn't, he's diving at Wicks and he clearly catches both arm like with each hand he catches a different arm of Wicks and like the ball hits him in the shoulder pad. And I know Love needs to throw a better pass and all that kind of stuff, but you're not looking for the ball and you're early contacting the receiver. That's PI. Like that's the definition of it.
It's like the gif that I kept putting out there of the clowns pulling the endless handkerchief out of their pocket. That was basically what the refs were today.
And like I said, we would be talking about this if Green Bay had won the game. This isn't why they lost, but it just deserves to be called out that this was a shittily officiated game. Like it was just
And I've said it
terrible.
multiple times already. They were calling calls on both sides.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a Packers thing. It wasn't just a Browns thing. It was on both sides.
And to dip into both how we've said the O line was bad and the refs were bad, they could have called the Packers O line for false starts on like 20 plays this afternoon because, and like I said, that ties back to the first game on the road because they were like clearly leaving early on snaps and stuff. Like to my eye, I thought they were like very early and stuff, but it's one of those that it's like it just goes to show like you know whether you read into the tinfoil hats of like, do the refs have a quota that they're allowed to call up to? Do they, just get into moments where, all that kind of stuff. The last moldy that I think we both have on the back burner, it's Rich. And it's like,
Now, before you get into it, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. I thought special teams overall was pretty solid today up until that final issue with the block kick.
the the coverage teams were good today. The kick returns were pretty solid. The reason I have a problem with it, and I think Wayne called it out, or Wayne or Moose called it. I saw someone tagged it after the game. One of them said on the field goal we made, "Ooh, that almost got blocked." Like, and it felt like 2021 where like you have the Crosby game winner in San Fran where it's like, "Ooh, that guy like the ball goes between his arms," kind of thing and stuff. And it felt like that, and it's like on the game, what should have been the game winning field goal, it's like it was in the back of my mind, but I'm like, 44 yards is where it shouldn't be a low kick and all that kind of stuff. And then the floodgates just open on the left side of the line. Like you have,
And who was one of the ones there? The one that was having problems all damn game with blocking, Jordan Morgan.
yep. And so, and that's one where I don't like small guy. Like I know he's a 300-pound lineman, but I don't like light guys on the interior of the field goal protection team because he got jacked backwards on that play. And I always prefer guys who are just like, you want the Nazir Stackhouse types in the middle there because it's not about protecting an edge or like you have to square up your gap on the inside. It's the rules are your inside hand is strong and then you pass the guy outside to the next guy. It's the phalanx. But it's like, and in that scenario is where I don't like guys like Morgan who are light in the pants and can get jacked by a double team coming at them kind of thing. And you just saw it like it looked like a zombie movie where like the barricade gets bowled over kind of thing. And it's like you can't have your protection unit get beat in the middle and have a guy winning around the edge kind of thing. And I hate that it's Kraft who was the end man on the line in that scenario, but it's like it's like Kraft didn't trust the inside shoulder because when you're that last guy, you have to shove that guy clear of the pocket. And he like, I don't know if it's because of how Cleveland lined up, but he like looks inside and then he's late coming back over to push the corner wide kind of thing and stuff. And it, like you said, I know that 3/4 of the special teams unit looked good today, but your job is to get all four of those suckers. And like I said, it wouldn't have been as bad if it was only the block. It would still be bad, but like I said, my thing was that first field goal didn't look great either on the protection unit. I get that there's bodies moving in and out because of injury, like Tom and Banks leave the game. I don't know if Banks is supposed to be where Morgan is and stuff. And Bullard leaves and apparently Wyatt got injured too, according to Kuhn at some point in the game. But like your job, like your whole job as special teams coordinator is that's all of those things, that's your baby, and you cannot have a part of it fuck up because it's gonna cost you the game when it matters most.
So I've got one more that's kind of an interesting one, and I'm kind of confused about the whole thing. And this one goes out to the equipment managers of the Green Bay Packers. How does a fucking face mask break in the middle of a game? How do you let a fucking offensive lineman's face mask break in the middle of a game?
Okay. And Moose has seen a lot of football, has played. He is the fullback who got fullbacks on the Pro Bowl roster. And he had a good, fun 5 minutes just giving it to the Packers equipment team because I think he was dumbfounded. Like you said, I've seen the kind where one screw on the top pops out and then the thing is rattling and stuff. I've never seen it where the whole shebang is like off. Like, Rashid's whole face mask was being held on by one screw on the top. Like, I've never seen that. You're right. Like, and the fact that he didn't just grab someone else's helmet is beyond me. It's
hard to. You got to remember in the pros that they're specially molded to them.
That's true. I guess the times of McGee wearing a lineman helmet is over and stuff like that. But it is one of those where, and the shitty thing is the only helmets that they have backups for are the green dots. So it's only the quarterback and the, like Quay's helmet are the only ones that they have backups for. But yeah, like watching the equipment guy and
I mean, he was moving as fast as he could.
He was. And
how do you let that happen?
But like you can see it when they zoom in on Rashid's helmet that all four of those screws at his chin are gone. And it must have sonic ringed when he got hit on that play because I've never seen that happen before. Like I said, this is one of those who would be laughing out loud if they had won the game because it was one of those like the fuck just happened on that thing? But yeah, it just becomes one of those like, and that happened today thing. So yeah,
At first, I was putting it up as another injury, but then they started talking about the face mask, and then you got to looking, and he's sitting there going like this with his face,
right,
with his like, what?
right,
What the hell?
and they kind of said like before he goes off there like, oh, like he's giving his helmet away. I'm like, oh god, did he get concussed kind of thing or something? But then when they show like him, when they show Sheed, like it's always the med guy taking the helmet, like doing the like, no, like give me your helmet kind of. It's not the player being like. And what was really weird is like anyone who's been a football player, you hold your helmet by the face mask, whether you're putting it on a shelf, holding it in your hand,
Swinging
using
at
it as
other
a
people.
you're holding it by the face mask, and that is one of the first times I've seen someone hold it in like, you know, like a hollowed out pumpkin, and you're holding it in like the back. And the way he handed it to the equipment manager, that was where one of those where it's like, the hell is
The
going
only
on
time you
here?
didn't grab it by the face mask is if somebody was handing it to you by the
Right,
face mask. So you
right,
just grabbed it by the scruff and held on to it until you could
yeah,
get the face mask. But I couldn't believe it. That goes down to first for me. I don't think I've ever seen something like that happen. And, you know, I'm getting to the age where I've watched a lot of football. I've seen decals fly off helmets after getting
right,
hit. I've
yeah.
jerseys ripped. I've seen undershirts being torn where it looks like it's going a mile long. I've seen grass in places you wouldn't think grass would be, but
Guys
I
get
have
hit so
never.
hard the earpiece falls out of the helmet and stuff like that. But
Cleats break. I've seen cleats break, shoestrings break, but a helmet face mask? That's
like
supposed
that,
to be the thing that's
yeah,
not supposed to break.
yeah, just it's that, like I said, like you said, that's the final moldy. And it's also one of those like, just burn this tape.
The
we
only
we
thing that I got that's not a moldy or anything like that is I just have a question on why Brinson has been inactive. And especially considering like Brenton Cox has been out, so they don't quite have the D line depth. I know Wooden and Brooks have been holding up pretty good on the defensive line, but and I understand Stackhouse has been solid for what he is, but you know, if it was
he's
worried
only
about any,
situational. Like that's the
yeah,
thing, and that's the part where I agree with you. Like the easy answer is it's a numbers game. There's just not another player they're going to activate Brinson over to get all the D tackles active. Where it gets into the little bit of hazy is it's like, okay, but if you're not going to play Stackhouse more than 15 snaps, then it's like you're really only rotating three guys. And I know that Lucas is getting inside snaps. I know the NASCAR package muddies that a little bit more. But in terms of like in your just like base slash standard nickel defense, you've got two D tackles out there, and you're really only rotating three in there. Stackhouse is like a goal line and certain middle of the field, like third and short situations guy. Other than that, he's just standing over there at the Gatorade cooler, like, I'm fresh, guys, but he's not getting in on regular snaps. And it gets into this, like you said, this is the like, is it which one is more valuable? Being able to rotate four defensive tackles who are all kind of the same body build, or having that one hog molly who could plug the middle, but you're not using him because you don't want him to get stuck on the field if the other team goes hurry up kind of thing. Like I do, you know, those are the hard decisions that a head coach has to make that I don't. But it is one of those where you're kind of like, you know,
and
like
also because they spent a actual draft pick on Brinson and Stackhouse was a UDFA, and I thought they both put the same tape out there during the preseason. They were both solid. They didn't really give you much else other than being that nose tackle type of guy. So it's just been weird that I've been seeing that the last 3 weeks.
yeah, and who knows? Like I said, you know, like I said, like a reference,
Maybe they
who
hope Stackhouse isn't going to fall asleep if he's actually active. I'm sorry, that was a bad narcolepsy joke. I know he's doing well and all that, but
You can't pass up the narc jokes. They always hit. And Brinson may get his first action this week. If I'm not sure what the Wyatt injury or if it really is an injury, but Kuhn did make a note of it that he did leave the game at one point and was seen talking to the trainer. He made a point to bring that up to Wayne and Rock on the apparently on the radio broadcast that
yeah.
I'm not sure when it happened, but Kuhn was very adamant that he was on the bench talking to a trainer. Not sure if he went to the blue tent, but he didn't go back into the game apparently after Kuhn made that point. So not great there because Wyatt's been off to a really good start to the season. But, maybe Brinson gets to see the field this week. But back to what I was saying, I think the helmet breaking is just another symbol of how
I just want to
dumb
keep
of a
talking about the helmet breaking.
it's just another sign of how
We've
stupid
never
of a
seen
game
it.
this was. And honestly, like I said, I would be saying to burn the tape whether you won this game or not, because this, and we both said it, like there were times where I said, if the Packers win, don't be surprised if this is like the 9-0 win against the Jets in 2010. And it almost was there at certain points. And this is one of those where you lost, and I'm like, I don't know what you take from in terms of other than don't do this stupid shit anymore from this game.
I
But
definitely
even
don't
if
want to
you-
be Morgan this week.
But even if you had won this game, I would just say, let's dust our hands of that and never speak of it again, kind of thing. And you still had enough stuff that there's still enough things from the first couple weeks that you could still look to build on, that it's like all the things you did wrong in this game, you wouldn't have to highlight those because it's like, let's just play 5% better and we're that much overall better kind of thing. This is one where it's like, it's a comedy of error. Like I said, to the point where Jacobs definitely fumbled the ball at the end, and that wasn't even the thing that screwed you at the end of the day. It was just, like I said, there was a comedy of errors that just showed Green Bay was doomed to lose this game in the stupidest of manners. And the way you have to look at it as Packers fans is, for 55 minutes of this game, they, even as sloppily as they played, they were in control of this stupid game. And even after Love threw a dumb interception on a dumb play call in a dumb scenario, he still comes out and draws a legitimate pass interference on a throw to Dobbs up the seam, runs a play action to hit Kraft to put them further into field goal position, and then has to sit there as he watches Jacobs potentially fumble the game away. And it's like, what really sucks for Love is that, as dumb of an interception as he threw, he went right back, showed the, like I said, the zero, the lack of a erratic pulse on the heartbeat, man. And he goes and he takes his team down into what should have been game-winning field goal position, and it's all for naught because you get the kick blocked, or in another universe, Jacobs is clearly fumbling it right to a Cleveland defender, kind of thing.
It also makes me wonder if he's hurting a little bit after him trucking the Commanders player, because you saw him sliding a little bit earlier than he probably should have been sliding, or ducking out of the way more than.
And I've seen people question oh, he slid short of the sticks on that second down play. I have no problems with that. There are 3 Browns defenders in frames who are all leaning towards him, and I don't need him getting concussed for a first down in a game that you're up, I believe, I can't remember if they were up 3-0 or 10-0 at that point. I don't need him sacrificing his body in that scenario. And the Kraft caper was going to work on the next play if Morgan doesn't jump off sides. So, I don't have the problem with that. Other people are like, oh, he needs to go in there. No. Your quarterback, don't do that. And I see some people saying too, oh, dive head first. I'm like, Delpit's coming in head first at his head. Don't do that.
The dive head first isn't treated like a normal slide. You're putting yourself out there.
It's different in college than it is in the NFL, where I had no problems with that in that scenario. That wasn't the play I was going to rip Love over. It's the sack.
No, and I'm not ripping him on it. You saw a little bit more of that today.
I think that's more of okay, Jordan, remember that you getting hurt fucked us last year. Like, that's great and all for morale that you ran over a corner, but even that, like, I think he would have done that if he's on the sideline and it's one corner kind of thing. But there's two linebackers and a safety coming from depth on him there. And, like, I saw people moaning and groaning. I'm like, no, that's not analogous to when he trucked Amos last week. So it's, like I said, it's a culmination of dumb errors where it's like you just look at it and you're like, burn the tape on this game. It's dumb. And you just kind of, as a fan, you just have to throw your hands up, shake your head, and say, like, there's the dumb loss for the season. And you just have to count on that being their one dumb loss for the season.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And we did point to, like I said, this and the Arizona game were the two where it's like, this one, because it's your first road game, it's an uncommon opponent, and one that's a bad team on one side of the ball. These never work out the way that, as a fan of the team going into that environment, these scenarios never work out. You're never leaving this game happy, kind of thing. It's either an ugly win or a stupid loss like the Packers took today. The Arizona game, it's the first cross-country trip for the team.
Let's worry about that when we get to it.
Yeah. But
isn't it funny that we can spend almost an hour and 15 minutes talking about a shit game, but we struggle to get 45 minutes in when it's a good game?
That's how these things go. You pare the apple back more when it's a rotten one. But yeah, as McCarthy would say, we're on to Dallas. And we appreciate you joining us. You know, all these episodes are going to be dour, sour, you know, rotten to some extent, but that's what
I'm already hearing it. Before you jumped on, I was on TikTok and I already saw that Homer from
that one was
ESPN Milwaukee or whatever saying you can't trust Jordan Love.
That was
and
dumb.
It's like, shut the fuck up.
LaFleur, and and I don't think that's LaFleur falling on the sword, but he's right that it's a bad situation to call that play into that Love throws the interception on. And no, Jordan shouldn't be throwing into multiple coverage and stuff like that. It's a bad decision, and also it's one where it's like, you've been getting your socks knocked off all game. You think you've got the situation you want, and Delpit just makes a play. Like, that's one of those, it's not a great play by Love, but it's also those guys get paid to play football too kind of thing. And as much as you want to be mad at Love in that scenario, you got to credit Delpit for feeling out the route combination and falling off and making the interception. But we won't hem and haw over that anymore tonight.
I got to edit the episode.
Yeah. Please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. I promise you the sky will not be falling there this week. We'll be talking more about things that the team can still build on, what to look forward to. They can still finish the first quarter of the season on a high note and get into the week 5 bye. Check out our merch. Check out all past episodes of Ohana Packers Edition and Cheese Talk Radio. Please support us there. Like I said, brought up the merch. Please support us there. Please follow us on your favorite social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, Ohana Packers Edition. Joe mentioned to me in pre-recording, our recap episode is going to be the live episode. If you can get us over 100 followers, we'll be able to live stream on Facebook as well. Follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give it a like. Please give us a like and a subscribe. And hey, whether you think the sky is falling, whether this team is still winning the Super Bowl, whether this is just a bump in the road, let us know what you're thinking, and we will respond in our episodes, because that's the kind of people we are. We want to, treat this like we're talking to you in person, even though it's just the two of us. But, the Packers
or I just talk to myself like normal.
It's a disappointing loss, but hey, you've won your 2 NFC games this season. You're still above 500, and you have a great chance to bounce back against a reeling Dallas team. So until then, go Pack Go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for who